On this Wednesday night, the American president on the world stage taking aim at Canada.
Canada lives because of the United States.
His direct message to Prime Minister Mark Carney as Donald Trump dials down his threats against Greenland.
I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
And backs off, slapping Europe with tariffs.
He always, changes his mind.
Our Heidi Petracek is in Greenland's capital tonight. Tearful testimony, what Prince Harry said in court and why the judge interrupted him multiple times. Plus, utterly brilliant.
This is shocking to us.
Why this cow is wowing scientists.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. president continues to keep the world, including his allies, off balance, now claiming he has what he calls a framework for a deal on the future of Greenland. In his speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Donald Trump criticized America's allies, declaring the world is almost entirely reliant on the U.S. for peace and prosperity, and telling European leaders they'd all be speaking German and Japanese now if it weren't for the U.S. military. The tone was a sharp contrast to Canada's Prime Minister yesterday. Mark Carney's speech has been widely hailed as statesmanlike and meeting the moment. This was Trump's reaction to it today.
Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Prime Minister Carney was not in the room. He'd already left Davos. Trump did, for the first time, say he is not going to take Greenland by force. And later in the day, after meeting NATO Secretary General, he posted, "We have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region." What this actually means is unclear. We'll have complete coverage tonight, including reaction from Greenland, but we begin with Jackson Proskow.
With his imperialist ambition hanging over Europe, President Donald Trump came to Davos to address the elephant in the room.
And I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States.
Trump was unapologetic about his desire to take over the Danish territory, issuing a vague but menacing warning.
They have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
He backed down from his most ominous threat and vowed not to use the U.S. military to capture the island, despite boasting that he could.
Because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
The Danish foreign minister called that a positive, but said his country's position has not changed. Greenland is not for sale.
I'm helping Europe. I'm helping NATO.
As Trump railed against his allies in Europe, NATO's Secretary General seemed tasked with smoothing things over, as one of the few willing to even entertain Trump's Greenland talk.
This focus on Ukraine should be our #1 priority, and then we can discuss on all the issues, including Greenland.
Late Wednesday, Trump claimed he and the NATO head had agreed to form the framework of a future deal for Greenland and the Arctic. There were no specifics, but it was enough to get Trump to back down from his threat to level coercive tariffs against Europe.
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. And I think it puts everybody in a really good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and everything else.
Perhaps no coincidence, the change of heart came after the EU said it was suspending work on a trade deal with the U.S.
Until the threats are over, so there will be no possibility for compromise.
Trump certainly didn't ease tensions in Davos, but he didn't seem to escalate either. European leaders are now left to decide how much faith they want to put in Trump's words, knowing he's often quick to change course, especially when he doesn't get his way. Donna?
Okay, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. From a threat of military invasion of Greenland to claiming there is some kind of deal on its future, it has been a bewildering 24 hours for the world, and especially for the people who are at ground zero of all of this, the people of Greenland. Heidi Petracek is there and has been getting reaction. Heidi, what are you hearing?
Donna, there's been a lot of anxiety and worry here ever since Donald Trump intensified his claims that the United States, quote, needs Greenland. Officials here have taken his talk very seriously. What the president said in Davos Wednesday offers little comfort.
Nuuk.
The Greenlandic take on the red MAGA hat says it all.
A way to show Trump that he's not welcome here.
Summing up how many people here feel about the U.S. president and his threats to take over the very place where they live. What's your biggest fear?
Invasion.
For weeks now, Greenlanders have woken up every day to yet another online post, another threat, and it's exhausting. Government officials have been holding news conferences, not only for their citizens, but for an increasing number of international press, all wondering what's next. Wednesday, officials representing Inuit people here, the majority of the population, urged people to stay united, to concentrate on trying to find some sense of peace, despite the words of the U.S. leader. The government has even gone so far as to release a 5-day emergency preparedness plan for residents just in case. Advice like having a supply of food and a first aid kit on hand, and how to prepare for power outages. Tuesday, Greenland's prime minister warned Greenlanders to be ready in case of invasion, even though he also called that unlikely. Word that Trump said he would not resort to force has done little to ease minds inside and outside Greenland.
I think he's trying to find an out. I think that's a good thing. He's trying not to lose face.
But he always, changes his mind. And one day it's one thing and the other day it's another thing.
From an intelligence perspective, we're faced with a warning problem because, we have to collect so and so many details as to that can tell us something about the real intentions behind these things.
Donna, Donald Trump has put people here in an uncomfortable position, putting them on an emotional roller coaster while also putting them in a global spotlight. Many here would just rather be left in peace. Donna.
All right, Heidi Petracek in Nuuk, Greenland, thanks. President Trump keeps a close eye on the markets and watched them drop when he made his Greenland threats and said he'd impose punitive tariffs on Europe for opposing his plans. Today, after he backed off those threats, the U.S. markets bounced back, erasing most of yesterday's big losses. Trump scolded Canada today for not being grateful and for that speech Prime Minister Mark Carney gave yesterday, even though that speech has been lauded around the world. Mackenzie Gray has some of the reaction.
It turns out the great power the Prime Minister chided on Tuesday was listening.
I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful.
Canada's criticism leading to an ominous threat.
Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
The Prime Minister and his office didn't comment on Trump's musing about Carney's blunt assessment of U.S. actions.
We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just.
The reaction from Europe, overwhelmingly positive.
I think he had a speech which was strong on Canadian values.
All in all, I think one of the best speeches that we've heard here in Davos this week so far.
Analysis also seen in U.S. media with coverage of Carney's speech on the front page of the New York Times and praise from U.S. cable news.
The Prime Minister of Canada, our steadfast ally to the north, our neighbor, gave one of the best, most clear-eyed, sober, urgent speeches that I've heard a politician deliver in a very, very long time.
Carney's rebuke of Trump, a return to the promised elbows-up approach, a strategy he often traded in for flattery post-election.
You're a transformational president, the focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker.
Criticism of the mercurial president does come with risk, as free trade talks are set to start this month.
The reality is Canada's GDP is 75% dependent on the United States. Canada's geopolitical decisions are not the hinge on which history swings.
I'll say this now. The Prime Minister has me purring.
Domestically, even some conservatives are praising Carney's approach.
There's nobody better qualified than he to lead us at this point.
As for the conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre's been silent on Carney's speech, Donna, instead tweeting out about the industrial carbon tax, leaving it to individual conservative MPs to call on Carney to actually follow through on domestic actions like building a pipeline to make his new vision a reality.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. Prime Minister Carney is on his way back to Canada today after 8 days abroad, building trade relationships in China and Qatar, and then giving that major foreign policy speech in Davos about the need to form new alliances beyond the U.S. Our chief political correspondent, David Aiken, covered all of it and says the Prime Minister could be on the road again as early as next month.
Well, Donna, it might seem a bit odd to be talking about India while standing here amongst the Swiss Alps, but that is indeed where the Carney government is now casting its mind as the next big trade opportunity for Canada.
India's year-over-year growth is about 7%, so they need food, they need energy. We have that.
Prime Minister Carney has been working on boosting Canada's relatively minuscule trade with India ever since he invited Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the G7 last summer. The two men picked up on conversations at the G20 summit in South Africa. Now, developing a relationship with Modi, who is a Hindu nationalist, is not without controversy, especially among Canada's Sikh population. And of course, agents of the government of India have been fingered as agents of foreign interference here in Canada. But Carney's new approach to trade, as he explained in Davos on Tuesday, is to be principled and pragmatic.
Interests diverge that not every partner will share all of our values. So we're engaging broadly, strategically, with open eyes. We actively take on the world as it is, not wait around for a world we wish to be.
Maninder Sidhu represents a riding in Brampton, Ontario, that's home to Canada's largest South Asian community. And as he explains, he has been tasked by Carney to find new trading partners and to execute on Canada's new trade priorities.
It's the same thing with China. There are certain things that we align with, and there are certain things that we don't align with. But at the end of the day, we need to find opportunities for Canadians.
Carney could be in India as early as February, and Sidhu says full free trade negotiations could be underway by then as well.
It's important that we engage with India. They're destined to be the third largest economy in the world.
But first, some domestic politics. Carney heads from here to Quebec City for a Thursday morning cabinet retreat that's going to last 2 days. And then he's got a weekend of caucus meetings before the House of Commons gets back to business Monday. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken in Quarton, Switzerland. Thank you. Carney's trade deal with China to allow 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into Canada at 6% duty is being condemned by Canada's largest private sector union, Unifor. It calls it a self-inflicted wound that will cause more damage to the country's already reeling auto sector.
Auto workers have been on the front lines of this trade war since last February, fighting to protect their jobs, their plants, and their communities. And that's why this China deal is a hard pill for them to swallow right now, because they've seen this movie before, where their jobs end up on the chopping block because of some trade negotiation. Opening up the Canadian market to cheap China-owned EVs worsens the situation we have already.
Those 49,000 Chinese EVs would represent 3% of the roughly 1.9 million new vehicles sold in Canada per year. The federal government is expected to announce a new policy for the auto sector in the coming weeks. Firefighters in Montreal have now contained a large fire that closed the Jacques Cartier Bridge this morning. The blaze broke out at a vacant building near the foot of the bridge last night and reached the roof of the three-story structure in just hours. One of the main routes between Montreal and Longueuil was cut off during morning rush hour. The bridge has since partially reopened. The building had been vacant for many years and was being demolished. The cause of the fire is under investigation. Prince Harry testifies in a case against British tabloids. Coming up, why he became emotional. Plus, a critical reminder of the dangers in the backcountry. Prince Harry took the stand in a London courtroom today, testifying in his legal showdown with the publisher of the British tabloids, the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday. He's just one of 7 high-profile people who are part of that lawsuit. And today, he got emotional, accusing the papers of using illegal tactics to get information about his private life. Redmond Shannon is outside London's High Court with the details. Redmond.
Well, Prince Harry held back tears today as he described the effect that he says the Daily Mail has had on his wife. He says the newspaper has made Meghan's life, quote, an absolute misery. However, this case relates to articles published by the Mail and Mail on Sunday across almost 2 decades before he met Meghan. Many were about his previous relationship with ex-girlfriend Chelsea Davy. Harry told the court that a Mail reporter would sometimes turn up at places where no one could possibly have known that he'd be, likening it to stalking. He rejected the defence lawyer's suggestion that Mail journalists were just close to his friends, asking the lawyer, then why did the Mail need to hire private investigators? On a number of occasions, the judge interrupted Harry, saying that he was arguing his case rather than answering the questions. Harry and 6 other high-profile figures say the papers used investigators to unlawfully gather information, including hacking voicemail and tapping landlines. Other claimants include Elton John and his Canadian husband, David Furnish. The publisher, Associated Newspapers, rejects the allegations. This is the latest case in Harry's crusade against the tabloids. He has successfully sued the Daily Mirror and last year reached an out-of-court settlement with Rupert Murdoch's News Group newspapers. This is just the first week of a 9-week trial. Actress Elizabeth Hurley is expected to testify Thursday. Donna?
Okay, Redmond Shannon in London, thank you. There have been more Israeli attacks on Gaza, killing 11 Palestinians, including children and journalists. The Hamas-run civil defense agency says 3 journalists traveling in a car were killed. They were on their way to film a displaced persons camp. The Israeli army says it targeted people operating a drone affiliated with Hamas, claiming it posed a threat to their troops. The Hamas-run health ministry says 8 others, including 2 children, were killed in separate incidents and that at least 466 Palestinians have been killed since a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas began in October of last year. A Japanese man has been sentenced to life in prison for shooting and killing former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The 45-year-old was arrested on the spot in July 2022 after shooting Abe with a homemade gun. Abe had been giving a campaign speech at the time. The man pleaded guilty to murder. Abe was the country's longest-serving prime minister and was 67 years old. Fog City ahead, why Vancouver has been undercover for almost a week. It was a close call for a skier in the backcountry of the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, avalanche, avalanche, avalanche.
A skier triggered this avalanche on a backcountry run outside the Lake Louise ski area on Tuesday. Parks Canada says the skier was carried to the bottom, buried to their waist, and lost both skis, but was uninjured. Parks Canada shared the video as a reminder of the risks, urging anyone in the backcountry to be prepared with proper equipment and check daily avalanche reports. Well, between the mountains, the beaches, and the shimmering skyscrapers, Vancouver and the West Coast often have people in the rest of Canada claiming it's coasting on its good looks. Well, for nearly a week, that beauty has been partially obscured by dense, low-level fog. Ethu Garcha reports on the foggy phenomenon, which many say has been beautiful in its own way.
Where mist meets mountains, a sea of low cloud is hovering across much of southwest BC. The fog landscape has been something to marvel at.
Watch the sun come through when we get it eventually.
I love the weather change here.
Warm air high above trapping moist, cool air below has helped maintain this low-lying cloud deck.
Well, the fog that's been extensive across Metro Vancouver most days for 5 days now, this is day 5, not that common. And with the moisture trapped down low, the fog forms and it's hard to get rid of for days and days with that ridge holding.
Sea bus passengers crossing the Vancouver harbour have watched vessels fade in and out of the haze, but the beauty can come with drawbacks.
You got to drive more carefully, especially at night.
It's pretty thick. Not much you can do about it.
The RCMP is reminding drivers to slow down, use headlights, and leave extra space, while air passengers are reminded to check their flights as airports across BC deal with visibility challenges.
Very similar to what you would do as a driver in bad weather and leaving more space between you and the car in front of you. That's what Nav Canada and aircraft do for the purposes of safety.
Advisories have covered the Lower Mainland, Vancouver Island, and as far north as Haida Gwaii for lingering fog from the light of sunrise to the glow of sunset. It's expected to start clearing later this week. Until then, familiar views from the sea to the skyline have been transformed into something silently spectacular. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
How now, brown cow? Next, why researchers are reevaluating bovine intelligence. Most of us look at cows as a source of milk and meat, but researchers say there's much more to them, that they exhibit complex problem-solving, strong memories, rich emotional lives, and distinct personalities. And an Austrian cow named Veronica has become the poster cow of bovine intelligence. Heather Urix-West explains.
My name is Vitka, and this is my very intelligent cow, Veronica.
From deep in the Austrian countryside, a brown cow's ability to scratch her back with a broom is making headlines around the world.
This is way more than what you should expect for any cow that belongs to a farm.
Veronica's owner says the 13-year-old has been using tools for the last 9 years, developing multi-purpose techniques scientists say have only previously been seen in chimpanzees.
There are around 1.5 billion of cows and bulls in the world, and we are only now starting to recognize that they are able to use tools. And this is shocking to us.
But those who raise cattle are less surprised.
Cattle learn just like everything else, right? We have certain cows, say 1 out of 250 cows that actually will walk through a cattle guard, right? They've learned to go sideways, stepping through the bars.
While researchers aren't sure how Veronica acquired her skills, they believe her advanced age, few cows live to see 13, and her stimulating environment may have worked in her favor. They also say since the study was published, other clever cows have come to light, meaning there are likely more momentous bovine brains like Veronica's out there to be found. Heather Urix-West, Global News, Calgary.
She's a beauty. That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Calgary Zoo's 14th annual Penguin Walk. The king penguins who live there get the chance to explore beyond their habitat, and it is always a favorite for visitors. The Penguin Walk is expected to run once a day through March, but it is dependent on the weather and the penguins' willingness to participate. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.